Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I am back with another video. Today we are going to be working with some Hero Arts stamps and dies, the Merry Snowmen, and then the number candles, which I'm actually not going to be using as candles because you know I'm super cheap and I really like stretching my stamps. So I also love a scene card. You guys know I love a scene card. I don't think that I have done a scene card since I had Caitlin, just because I, have trying to be conservative about my time. So I had a little bit of time and this idea that just would not, like, I just, you know how sometimes it is as a card maker, like you get this idea in your head and you're like, until I make this card, I'm not going to be able to move on to the next thing. So I'm going to show you how you could do this as a one layer card. But I am ultimately not going to make it a one layer card. I am going to add a little bit of dimension to it with the numbers. So here I've stamped down what will be my sentiment and then the 25. Obviously Christmas is the 25th. And I am creating a sign for my scene. I, in my head, kind of had this idea of some perspective, that things would, bigger things would be up close. That's why our sign is so big. And then, smaller things would be further away. The stamps in the Merry Snowman set are the same size. So in order to create that perspective, I had to play around with my scene a little bit, which honestly is kind of the fun of it. I'm not going to lie. But the numbers were very large because they are made, for us card makers to make birthday cards and things like that. So in order for them to make sense on a sign, the sign had to be the closest thing to the front of the card so that they would appear the biggest. So here I'm just, I've drawn my sign. I cannot find my T-square ruler. I think my husband took it for some drawing of some things that he wanted to make. So I just used my other clear ruler and my grid pad, which is always in my background, but I really do use it for measuring things. And then I'm just going to mask off my sign. I'm going to do this by following the pencil lines that are already there, making new ones, peeling my mask off and trimming them out. It was just really time consuming, so I didn't leave it in because this video is long. And then here I'm going to go ahead and stamp my snowman down, and then my trees are going to be in the background. Obviously these pine trees would be very large if they look this big in the foreground, and then I thought that it would be fun to kind of do like a little group of trees. So I have a visual triangle that I am creating, with the trees in the top right hand corner, the snowman kind of in the middle left, and then the sign in the bottom right. So kind of like lead your eye around. And then here I'm going to create my own mask to create my scene. I needed to do those like 3 little humps there, so that the snow would be like mounded up by where the trees are. That little line that I drew is actually like my path. I'm trying to visualize how that's going to be. And that's actually not how I ended up doing it. I ended up changing it, which is fine. I think it worked out okay. But like sometimes you just have to play around with it a little bit to see how that's going to work. Here I ended up rounding the path so that it would look as though it comes up over the hill. And then I wanted that to kind of cut off right behind the sign. And then I did just a wee little snow hills in the front. So again, I would have like those little mounds where the signposts are. And then once this is done, I'm going to remove it. Now, be careful that this doesn't take off your other masks. I have had that happen to me without realizing it. And then all of a sudden I'm ink blending and I realize I don't have a mask in place. And then I'm just going to trim these out. I'm just going to follow the lines the best that I can, and I'm going to keep all of the pieces except for the sky. I don't need that part for this. And then I'm just going to fit them together like a puzzle, pretty much, so that all the pieces fit back together, and then I can remove them as I need them. This is if you were doing a different type of scene I don't need the top sky portion because I know my ink blending isn't going to come all the way up. I'm going to do the ink blending for the snow just at the base of the hills and then leave the tops of them pure white. That's what's going to create my dimension. But if I was doing like a beach scene, for example, and I wanted there to be water up, like the sky and then the water and then the sand, then you would need to keep all of the pieces. I'm mixing it up for the sky. Aren't you guys proud of me? Like, I did that sky recently that had a little bit more teal in it, and I was like, okay, I'm a fan of this. This is pretty. I'm feeling it. So this time around, instead of doing blue, which I always go with because blue is my boyfriend, I decided that I was going to mix it up and do a little bit of like a teal color. And I think it works really well. You guys tell me what you think. I think it's super pretty, and I use speckled egg, salvaged patina, and peacock feathers, which is also a favorite of mine. If I wanted to go a little bit darker, I probably would have went mermaid lagoon next, just to add a little bit of dimension. But I wasn't looking for it to be a night scene. I am gonna add a little bit of a glow, which if you follow me on Instagram, then you will see I did a little reel about the glow. Thank you guys so much for the input on the reels. I genuinely appreciate that. It does seem like the majority of you are really just strictly YouTube, and there seemed to be a little bit of concern that the reels would replace my YouTube. That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. Part of the reason why I enjoy doing the videos is the connection that it allows me, between me storytelling and then you guys relating to that and sharing your stories with me in the comments, or that's just something that I enjoy, and I would not be getting rid of my YouTube. So there's no fear there. If you're not a person who watches reels, then don't worry about it. Like that's just not for you. And if you are, then great, follow me on Instagram. So here I just had to readjust that last mask because my little mounds weren't exactly in the places that I want them. So I just readjusted that and then put down some more shaded lilac. That's, if you guys watch my channel, that's kind of my go-to color for snow, though I do think the speckled egg would be really pretty, and I might try that in the future. But this dries back to kind of like a soft grayish purple, and I think that's almost like the perfect color for adding shading to snow. Now that the background is done with the distressing, so I'm going to go ahead and remove my masks. I had a little bit of a darker nail polish on here, and I didn't, since I have so much white, it's a snow scene. Since I have so much white, I didn't want to risk scraping my nail polish against my cardstock, and so that's why I'm using this little tool to help kind of peel up the edge and then remove that. Once I was done removing that, you can see that my sign is still in pencil. The reason that I did not do the pen lines to begin with is because sometimes when you're masking a self-made shape, like something you've drawn, it's hard to get the masks perfect. And so with doing the inking after the fact, I can kind of play around with the shapes if I need to. I will say, I kind of wish that I would have done a little bit of snow or a little bit of something on the sign instead of just on the numbers, but I didn't. And so that's just something in the future that maybe, I would change about it. But all in all, I think it's a super cute little scene. I'm going to use a couple of the lighter grays to do kind of like a little cobblestone path. That's the easiest way that I have found to put in a roadway without having to have like super defined lines. And it's super easy to make it in perspective. So this is something absolutely you could do. And I'm just doing a series of smaller dots the further away it is, because you wouldn't be able to see any of the details, you know what I mean? Like it would just look kind of vague, and like the shapes aren't super important. But then as it gets closer, as it comes up the hill, those shapes would get bigger and a little bit more defined. I'm still using the same 4 colors, because I want, that continuity throughout the design. And then when you're coming up over the hills, you kind of want to vary where the road is coming. So then once I had it all the way up to where the sign was, I'm just going to go back in with my black pen, if I could keep it in my hand. Thank God it didn't mark on my card. What would I have done? I wouldn't have started over. I would have colored over and found a way to fix that, because we are invested at this point, y'all. Invested. And so here I'm just going to add in a little bit more detail. because they would be closer up and you would see that if you were standing directly in front of the sign, which is our perspective for this card. Now we're going to move on to coloring the snowman. He is going to be a white snowman, but he is going to have some darker shadows on the right-hand side because his light source is in his, well, it's our right. It's his left. Does that make sense? I hope so. Anywho, he has the lantern in his right hand, so that's going to be the lightest side. And then we're going to do a little bit of color glazing. If you don't know what color glazing is, that's okay. It's a super simple concept. The idea of color glazing is that you color your objects typically the same way you would normally do it. Here, you would leave, and you'll see it when we do like the scarf and the hat, you leave a white highlight. Now he's a white object, so I don't have to leave it. His whole right hand side is white. But you leave a white area if you're doing light. If you're not, if you just want to change the feel of the color, like adding, I think it was like it's a BV something. I wanted him to be less gray and more matchy with the snow, since that's what he's made out of. So I just took a very light BV. I think I used maybe a 00 or maybe even a quadruple 0. And then you can just glaze right over your snowman, right over that gray coloring. And it's just going to temper the gray to be more on the purple side. And then for the actual glow portion, you want to make sure you leave those white highlights so that when you add your yellow, that is the highlight on that object. And I've done this a bunch of different times. I did it with pumpkins for Halloween. I did a camping scene with it. It's just something that's really fun that kind of adds that little wow factor to your card. But once you understand the concept, is not difficult to do at all. I would just recommend starting with a lighter yellow so that it doesn't overpower it. You can always go darker. And then if for some reason your yellow isn't blending into the image as well as you want, that's what the 0 marker's for. Go back in there, hit it with a 0 marker, try to lighten it up and blend it a little bit more. So just don't go too dark. I think mine that I went with was a Y11, which is relatively pale. So yeah, we're going to go through and do the coloring. For story time today, I don't even know if I really have a story. We're just going to talk and we'll see how it goes. So first things first, I totally appreciate all the support from my last video. That day was a day. However, though, I think I gave the impression that Caitlin cries all the time, and she really doesn't. Nathan cried all the time. That is a true story. But Caitlin doesn't. She has fussier days, but I mean, she's only 5 weeks old. So she's going to have some fussier days for some reason. Babies just get fussier in the evening typically. And hers is always because she doesn't nap and she's overtired. And you never know because they can't tell you. So you never know really what's going on there. So it is a little bit more challenging to, rock and shush and all of that. So I think it was a quadruple 0 because I just showed it on the screen. But here's that glazing that I was talking about, just going over those white areas to add in a little bit of purple. It doesn't get rid of the gray. It doesn't get rid of the shading by any means. It just adds another layer of color to kind of tone it. When we're doing the glow part of it, that's going to go on all of our highlight areas so that he looks like there's light emitting from this lantern that he's holding in his hand. I put on a little bit and then I thought I wanted a little bit more. I did like the little bit more. So I did like it better. So I went in and added some of there. It got a little hard to blend it into the background. And so I did go in with my 0 marker and just kind of go along the edges and over the snow part so that it was a little lighter. And then on the red portions, it just did not seem like my glow was really apparent enough. So then I upped it. I went to a Y19. I added that around the lantern and then, like I said, on the red portions and then blended it back out with the Y11. And it gave it that brightness factor that I was looking for. if this was a night scene, I would have added substantially more yellow, not just so centralized on the snowman. But since it's more of like a dusk scene, that little bit of yellow works. So yeah, so for the trees, I wanted to do some like snow tops. I thought that would be a fun way to add in a little more detail, and I stuck with like true greens because it to me looked like that would go better with the teals that I chose versus a yellow green. Plus they're pine trees and they are a little bit more green versus yellow green, even though I prefer yellow green and that's my go-to. But yeah, so Caitlin doesn't cry all of the time. She just, she cries like a newborn cries. Even though I think technically the cutoff for a newborn is 4 weeks and now she's just an infant. I don't know. I don't know what they say, the infamous they. But she's still just a little wee one. And so we're just taking it day by day. Eric is going to be going back to work. For all of you who left comments that my husband is awesome for helping, you are correct. He is awesome for helping. I think that traditionally a lot of childcare has fallen to moms. That just seems to be like society standard, and I personally think that that's crap. That's just me. Which is why I married a man who also contributed to those things because it was something that was important to me to have a partner in all aspects of my life and not just, I'm the only person caring for a child, or I'm the only person caring for our household, or I'm the only person who cooks. That's just not, that was no thank you. Like, we can do the dishes. We all eat off the plates. Just saying. So yeah, but he does go back to work, and so I'm going to be solo. We are very fortunate that we have family members who are going to be helping us out because he's going to stay where he is, but they're going to be cross-training him for his next position. Eric will be moving positions early next year, and so our schedules will change. Even though they're crazy now, it'll change again, just because that is the life of shift work. And well, it's not a promotion per se, it is a different position in the department, and I'm super proud of him. I think he's going to do a great job, but because they are low on people, I'm sure that you can imagine, if you were watching any part of the news, that becoming a member of law enforcement is not the most popular employment choice at the moment, and I don't blame a single one of them. That they are a little shorthanded on people, so while they're training some of the new guys, he is going to be working just a little bit of overtime to cross-train for his next position. So we got that going on. So we have wonderful moms who will be contributing to our childcare so that way I'm not doing, I'm not by myself for 12 hours with 2 kids. Not that it's not feasible, it totally is, and I'm sure that there's a million moms out there who have totally rocked that, but if I don't have to do it by myself, I'm not going to. I made the mistake very early on with my first child that I was like, well, I'm the one who has to do it because nobody else is going to do it. At the end of the day, I'm the one who's ultimately responsible for it, and when other people would offer to help, I would not take them up on it, i.e. when my mom would call me and be like, I can take the baby, I wouldn't let her. And that made my life substantially more difficult. And there's a reason they say that it takes a village to raise a family, because it really does. And so I'm kind of utilizing my village at this point because I just know that that's going to make everybody happier. So you saw me add the shading to the snow on the trees. That just gives it a little bit more dimension. And I did color the 25 flat on the card so that you can see it can totally be a 1-layer card if that's what you're into. That's what I'm into typically. But I had to make the scene make sense. And since there's no snow or ice on the sign, but there is on the numbers, they needed to stick out further. Could I have done this with shading in my markers? Yes, I could have. I could have given them that look, but I chose to do it this way because one, I already owned the dies, and you will see these stamps again because, again, cheap chicken. And I will make a birthday card with them, or, you know, something else, because that's their intention, and they're super cute. Plus I got some balloons to go with them, and I want to color the balloons, which will totally be another thing that we revisit, the coloring of transparent items. I've done that before as well, but it's always nice to kind of go back and redo those techniques that you know and love. Here I just added some gray to them so that they would appear to be white, but again with just a little bit more dimension. So yeah, so I still have a little bit more time before I have to go back to work. I'm super jealous of the other countries who give like both parents 6 months off, or moms a year off. That's not our situation. So trying to make the best of the time that I have off of work, and seeing what we can do with it. For the ice portion of it, I did decide to go with a blue. This, like, the B0 family is pretty much my go-to for that, and that's what I chose to use here. I am going to be, of course, making that sparkly because, well, sparkles, and also like, I feel like it would look more ice-like with that. My friend Jen Shirkus, if you don't know who that is, look her up. She does all these amazing classes, but she it swears by the rock candy from Ranger. I did buy some. I haven't used it yet, but this is I used my go-to stickles, which are also from Ranger, and I highly recommend them. They're a great way to add glitter without making a mess. So I did outline my numbers and the other images in the background because, you know, I love a bold black outline. So I gotta do what I gotta do to make them stand out. And then I went ahead and put my dies in place, ran those through my platinum, my Spellbinders Platinum, and you can see here where I colored it. That's all one layer. That card would be finished. However, I am going to pop these up on foam just as a little extra element, like I said, for the ice to make sense. And then I also, I don't do the white outline. That's a struggle for me. So I am going to just kind of match the texture in the background so they blend in. I started with my lightest color and just went through the same process that I did when I colored the sign to kind of make them match up. White gel pen for highlights, because I also always do that. But here it made sense to give a whiter edge on my snow for the trees. And then I just added a couple of little highlights to my snowman. I didn't add any to the sign or to the numbers. I added shimmer to all of the snows because why wouldn't you? I mean, why wouldn't you make it shimmer? Honest. Like, that's the best part for me. So I added it to the trees, I added it to the top layer of the hills, and then here's those Stardust stickles I was telling you about, and that portion I just put on the 25, which I'm good with it. So you guys let me know if you would like to see anything else that we did on this car more in depth, or just your general opinion. Again, I appreciate you stopping by and visiting with me, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.